What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of At Home with Mark. Today is post-vacation show, so I am pumped to do this, and I'm even more pumped to have a guest on that I really want to brag about his artistry and his beautiful pedals that he builds. So we got Lawrence from LPD Pedals, and it's episode 12 of season 5. So we're about halfway through this season, and I'm super glad to have you on, Lawrence. Thanks so much for doing this, buddy.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. So, as I told you, I have a list of questions I want to get to, and we probably won't. And this is a sad day, Lawrence, because I'm a Marvel nerd too.
Yeah.
This is the last page of my X-Men Xavier's School for the Gifted Youngsters book. So you are the last chapter of this book. End of an era, moving on to a new book, I guess. Yeah. But I want to ask you, and I always ask everybody this because I'm so curious about people's paths and how they kind of traverse their careers and where they end up and where you are now. But like, what is your like earliest musical memory that you have? And it doesn't have to be guitar related or anything, but like, what is like the earliest spark?
That was probably when I was 5, my parents got me my first guitar. You don't, at 5 years old, you don't really know what you're doing at all. You barely have enough coordination to get things together, write, basic letters and things like that. So it's not like I took off running with it or anything. Right. My dad was in, my mom played piano and sang. My dad was in bands, country bands. So it was just kind of a natural thing having, both parents play. So that's probably, it's either getting the guitar when I was 5 or right around the same time. My memories don't go back so far, right? I mean, 5's, that's pretty early. Sitting on my dad's lap while he played guitar. Yeah, probably.
Nice.
Something like that.
Yeah. 5 is wicked early too, man. Like,
yeah.
When you think about like, that's when you're learning, like you're saying, like the alphabet, like you're in preschool.
Yeah. So it was a lot of just making noise, more than anything. I mean, I don't remember too much about it. I think probably better memory was I got a drum set when I was 8. And I remember the drum set not lasting too long because it just got demolished. But
was it like one of the little kid drum sets with like the like loose leaf paper drum heads?
Yes, right.
I remember that shit.
Yeah, with the pie pan cymbals and yeah, right.
That's awesome. Yeah, I had one of those. I remember when I was in middle school and we had our band. We like took Sharpies and like drew our like band design on the drum head in the front. That thing didn't last too long after that.
Yeah, nice.
So where did you grow up? Like what part of the country?
Colorado. Yeah, Western Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
My parents still have a ranch outside of a little town called Fruita, which nearest large, well, not even, I guess maybe it's large enough, city would be Grand Junction.
Okay.
So just outside of there. Yeah. Yeah. Which is just over the Rockies from Denver, almost a straight shot on the 70 over the Rockies from Denver.
Okay. Okay. And you said your dad was in a country? Was he in country groups? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that part of the country had that thing going on, especially like at that time when you're that young. That's really interesting. Like, tell me a little bit more about that. That's so curious.
They played, they did, it wasn't like there was a big music scene because it's a small town. But they would play like, just family get-togethers and things like that. They had he had a group of guys that he would jam with, and then some guys that he would do. If we had get-togethers at our house or a friend's house or whatever, they had a drummer and a bass player and singer and the whole works, and they would play like old country tunes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
was there a bluegrass element to what they did as well? Because I
know
like
no, not really. It was primarily just straight country western.
Okay.
Yeah. No it's crazy, so cool. Not even any crazy picking or anything. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. No, I'm jumping all over the place. I'm just fascinated by this because it's funny because there's like factions of the country. I think there's like pockets where like true like country western music and like bluegrass for some reason live.
Yeah.
And it's like Nashville and around Tennessee and stuff, but in Kentucky, but like there's like parts of Colorado where there's like a heavy bluegrass like syndicate, and it's so interesting to me how music can migrate, especially with when you're talking. I mean, I'm in my 40s, so like when my parents were my age, there was no internet, there was nothing to
Right.
get things besides terrestrial radio. There's no way to get that to other parts of the country. So to think about how some of these pockets have developed over time, that's just fascinating to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting because everything's, it had to have been word of mouth. That's really the only way that news could travel. And, if anyone who's from a small town knows that small town gossip beats Twitter any day of the week.
True.
Right. It's
great.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because nobody has anything else to do, or they didn't then, right? Because no social media or video games or anything like that. So,
right.
you hung out with family and friends and played music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what my dad used to say. My dad grew up as a kid in like the hills of West Virginia. And his dad, I actually just got my grandfather's guitar from 1939. I had it refurbished and I got it today.
I saw your post. Yeah.
Dude, it sounds gigantic. It's got a big fat neck, so it felt really uncomfortable when I first started playing it. And then as I started playing more and more through the day, I was like, oh, okay, I got it. Because it's like it's a fat neck, but it has like a V. It has like a soft V in it. But that's what he said. He said when they were kids, like that's what they did. Like all the relatives just got together, everybody had an instrument, and they just played. Now, my parents don't play any instruments, which is funny. But that is kind of like the family entertainment. There was no boob tube. There was no Netflix to kind of scroll and scroll.
Yeah, nothing like that. Even as a kid, we had like we didn't have a television for probably till I was like 10, maybe something like that. And even then it was like, we only had one channel, and most of the time it was just local news. It wasn't, good programming. So just about every evening there was some kind of musical thing going on. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
So was there a lot of like records spinning in your house then?
Oh yeah. Yeah. All the time. I don't remember too much time that there wasn't music going on being played. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Lucky you, dude. That's great. What kind of records were spinning when you were a kid?
Old country, because that's what my parents listened to. So, Hank Williams, Charlie Pride, trying to think of Chet Atkins, but I'm drawing a blank now, unfortunately. I haven't listened to any of that stuff in forever, but that's kind of what my foundation was, all the early country stuff.
Okay. What was your mom? Was your mom into that stuff too? I know you said playing piano. So was there any piano music in the house, like big band stuff, or?
No, again, nothing. If there was, if she was playing, it was just based around the country songs.
Okay.
Even though there's not much piano in country songs, it was. We had one of the old Lowry Genie organs. They had the double decker key, right, with the rhythm section on one side, and you could get all the little flip switches that gave you all the different sounds. Yeah.
Bossa Nova. Oh,
right. Man, then instantly turn the tempo all the way up because when you're a kid, they were like, "Whoa, that's cool."
I totally remember those, man. So you're listening to all this music, you're kind of getting inundated with music and like soaking it up as a kid. So like at what point does Lawrence like start to like seek out his own thing, or like try to find what you're seeking for in your ears?
Yeah, that would have been, I guess I was around, when did I discovered the Beach Boys at around 11 or 12. And then shortly which was cool, but I wasn't really part of that was, I think I remember seeing the movie Dead Man's Curve, the whole Dan and Jean story. No, Jan and Dean story.
Okay.
When I was a kid, it was on television or something like that, and I was enthralled with it. And then I think in that movie they referenced the Beach Boys. Anyway, so I had a brief interest in the Beach Boys, but then I had a friend turn me on to three records that pretty much changed everything for me. Kiss Destroyer, Bad Company, Desolation Angels, and Queen Jazz.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, followed shortly by Heart's Dreamboat Annie.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then it's just so then it's just like, what is this? And so then I was on, I think my next album was Kiss Alive 1, followed by Kiss Alive 2, and it wasn't too long after that I got into electric guitar and trying to figure out some songs. I think one of the first songs I figured out was Boston, More Than a Feeling. The intro to that was one of the first things that I figured out by
Nice.
ear. Yeah, right. And then let's see, that would have been 77, 78. Van Halen. Friend, I didn't discover Van Halen early enough to get like blown away by it wasn't until Van Halen 2, and I had a friend say, you got to check this out, because again, no internet, right? So you're just visiting one of your friends after school or whatever, and they're like, man, you got to check out this new band. And
Right.
they put it on, and you both just sit there and listen to it as your mind's being blown by what's coming out of the speakers, right? It's incredible.
Yeah.
So that was, Van Halen 2. I think Somebody Get Me a Doctor was first song I heard off that album. And I have to admit, on first listening, I thought the guitar was amazing, but I could not stand the vocals. I'm like, what
Yeah.
is this? Right? And when Dave's an acquired taste. You either love him or you don't. So, and
Yeah.
fortunately, I came to really, get into Van Halen and appreciate all of the Dave years. It was good stuff. Those first two
Yeah.
albums are just incredible.
It's smoking. I mean, it's funny because like it's a recurring theme. Van Halen and Kiss is a recurring theme on here with guitarists, and I think I just missed that, like, generationally. Like, I was when I was in the 80s, I was listening to like what my older siblings like had on. Like, so I was listening to Beat It and like all this probably pop music, and it wasn't until the grunge scene happened that was my Kiss, Van Halen. Like, when I first heard Pearl Jam, was like, holy shit, what is this? And I think had I been born 5 years earlier, I probably would have been in that boat with Van Halen. But all my friends were like into Van Halen. It's funny. I don't know what didn't appeal to me. Maybe I felt like the prowess of that music was above my head, possibly. I don't know. But it is a recurring theme that everybody's like, Van Halen, Kiss. Like, and I get it now, but like when I was younger, I was like, I don't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, they were definitely kind of milestone bands. Kiss, obviously, for their live show. Because I don't know if the recurring Kiss theme is of the Alive albums, but that's really what hooked me in, because I'd listened to Kiss Destroyer, and while it was pretty good, it didn't blow me away like their live stuff did. Their live stuff was just fantastic. And there's a lot, if you listen to, I think it's Ace's live solo in, I think it's from Alive 2. There's a decent amount of eruption flavorings in that solo that he does. Now, he's not doing the tapping thing like Eddie was doing or anything like that, but there's some of that vibe going on. So there's a little bit of a parallel there for sure.
Yeah, I can see that, I guess. It is crazy to think about when you think about players like Jimi Hendrix and you think about players like Eddie Van Halen and how much like they push the instrument forward and forward and forward. And even like Chuck Berry, let's go
Right.
back that
Oh,
far
yeah.
too. You know what I mean? Like there's like so much that you can just go back and just see the evolution of it. Like where do you see it? Where do you see it going right now? Like, are there any players that you're like, wow, this guy's pushing or this girl's pushing the boundaries right now of the instrument that I can see like something new happening? Have you noticed anything like that?
Yeah, Guthrie Govan.
Yeah, yeah,
That guy. I mean, there's, I think he's kind of the pinnacle on the instrument. There's
yeah.
really nothing he can't play. He accesses the entire neck as fluently and as freely as breathing. It's the, yeah. From I guess I discovered him, I guess about a year, maybe two before. Um, is it Erotic Cakes? Is that the name of the album that
I
he
don't
did?
know his discography, so you'd
Yeah,
have to
so
educate me.
it's probably like 6 or 7 years ago now, maybe a little longer. Um, I don't even remember how. I think it might have been a YouTube thing, or a friend says, "Hey, you got to check this guy out." But just mind blowing. His he's not on social media a tremendous amount, so most of what's out there is fairly old at this point. But
Mhm.
he's, I mean, even uh, 8, 10 years ago, just monstrous, just
Yeah,
just incredible, and you can tell he's improvising everything,
yeah,
and it's just fluid and cohesive ideas in his playing as he's playing, just amazing. So he's top of the game, I think, for that. Who is the is it Periphery?
oh, that band? Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, they're pushing the envelope pretty good on some for that style anyway.
Right, right.
Really interesting stuff, and stuff that's just insanely technical, hard to do, incredibly hard to do.
Yeah.
um yeah, I don't I think that's probably it for me. I spend a lot of time listening to, just my old favorites, Angus, um
Mhm.
Eddie. That's more than I mean, I love Paul Gilbert and all the shred guys. Obviously Nuno, can't get enough of Nuno.
Yeah, that dude's a
um
beast. That's
yeah,
crazy.
right. Just and in their all in their own right, top of the game.
I feel like it's such an interesting thing. I mean, I talk about that all the time about like as fluently, like you said, as breathing with some of these artists because there is there's a threshold that one crosses when you get into that territory that is just I'm like, how do you get there? And I know it's like practice, practice, practice,
Yeah.
work, play. And I know all those guys would say the same thing. Like, dude, I put a lot of time into this,
Oh,
But
yeah.
somebody like Guthrie seems like it might have come easier to him in a way.
Yeah,
Um,
I think there might be a formula, actually. I think it's there's a key age that you have to become completely infatuated with the instrument, right? And I think that is probably uh, like teens, early teens to 16, 17 at the latest.
mhm.
There's I think it's there's brain development and all of that, and I think because at that stage you the information input is so unrestricted, right? It just goes in and it stays. And you've got your responsibility level, other than school or whatever you're doing, is fairly low. And I think if you ask most of these guys who are, like Guthrie or Paul Gilbert, they didn't do anything but guitar. It's not like they were on the football team or playing baseball or basketball or anything like that. Yeah, maybe they did it for fun, but they weren't. Their thing was guitar, and they got locked into it, and that's all they did. And they would practice 8 and 10 hours a day,
Yeah.
7 days a week, right? At a stage when the physical development is there to be able to do most all of the stuff that they're hearing people do, Their brains are sponges, so they just soak it up, right? I think it's that combination. So I mean, if you get a person who starts at 14, by the time they're 20, that's 6 solid years of playing.
Yeah.
And if they take lessons or not, I mean, lessons speed up the process, but you still get there eventually. And right, depending on, again, the personality, I think too. If you're a really creative person and kind of a go-getter, then I think it really changes the game. They just kind of take off with it.
Yeah. It seems
Yeah.
limitless at that point if you have that
Right.
opportunity. It's like I feel that way about, and I'm not like the kind of music I'm into is more like definitely funk, blues, soul, neo soul kind of stuff, those kind of guitar players, and rock. But like somebody like Ariel Posen to me is that way too, and not in the Guthrie sense, but he's like very fluid with when he plays over changes, and he's improvising, and you can tell that he knows where the chord tones are. He's intentional but tasteful. And it's like that kind of thing. And his phrasing, like phrasing is such a big thing,
Oh
like
yeah,
people
absolutely.
don't think about phrasing enough. And I think what's interesting to me, because I take a very different approach to a lot of my contemporaries, I think, because I listen to too much Wayne Krantz, because he's so angular. Like everything he does is very rhythmic based. It's not flashy speed. It's not stuff like that, but it's rhythmic motifs in a way.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love stuff that's just like left of center, like, oh, what, whoa, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like one of my professors at Berkeley, when I went in, the very first lesson, he was like, all right, so we got to work on your proficiency stuff, obviously. But like, what do you really want to work on? Like, what's the stuff that gets you off? And I was like, well, I love Wayne Krantz. He's like, all right, we're not going to do that because I can't do that. And I was like, what are you talking about? I came to Berkeley because I wanted to learn this stuff. And he's like, well, it's not that I can't, the facility's not there. He's like, but he's like a swarm of bees. That's what he said to me. I'll never forget that. And it is true. Like there's so many different ways to be prolific as a writer and as a player and like soaking up all that knowledge. But like, it's so cool to see a player like that. Like if you put like Wayne Krantz and Guthrie on the same stage, both equally as talented musicians, but totally different.
Yeah.
And I love the juxtaposition of that stuff. It's just
absolutely
so cool, man. Okay, so from there, okay, you start working on guitar stuff. When do you like really like start doing what we were talking about, like the early teens? I'm infatuated with this thing.
Yeah. Now that happened late for me actually, because I was more into BMX and then motocross. So I didn't. Yeah, so I didn't really start getting hooked into and being interested in guitar until I was probably 17 or 18, which is kind of late to start to get in, especially the game in 1980, where everyone is, trying to play Van Halen, trying to play Randy Rhoads. Yngwie is only a year or two off from that, right? Yeah. So, but fortunately, I have a fairly obsessive personality. So once I started, I didn't do anything else. That's all I did.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was lights out. Like everything else was blinders, and you're just
eat,
like,
sleep, breathe. Yeah. Everything was guitar. Everything was guitar. Okay. Yeah.
And if you're starting off listening to the stuff that you're talking about and like figuring out Boston tunes, like you must have a great ear. I'm gathering, like you really picked up on that stuff.
Again, it's one of those things that there was no internet. There was no. I mean, when I started, guitar tablature hadn't even become a thing. It was right. If there was sheet music, I had to learn how to read the notes in order to get it from the sheet music, and most of the time that was transcribed by piano players, so it wasn't absolutely correct anyway. Right? It was, the notes were kind of in the space, but there wasn't any notation for bends or anything like that on standard tablature notation. So plus no software to slow anything down.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many LPs I wore out, or cassettes where I wore the tape so thin that it would break. Just rewind, play, and just trying to get it up here so that I could be able to get it into my hands. Yeah, it was a different world. It was, and it wasn't. I don't know that maybe all of the music in the house growing up helped build that ear foundation because I just heard it, but it was still insanely difficult for me. The first song that or the, yeah, I guess the first one, because the Boston tune, I think I got like the first chord and a few notes, and then my friend next door, he's like, "Oh, I know that song," and he came over and showed me the rest of it. So I didn't really learn that whole thing. The first song that I really jumped into to try to learn the intro to was "Bringing on the Heartache" by Def Leppard.
Okay.
That whole, and I remember, yeah, locking myself in my room for probably a good 8 to 10 hours, and just over and over and over again, and emerged victorious from it, but completely spent, completely beat, because it took everything that I had to try to, because when you first start doing that kind of thing, the fretboard is massive. There's so many options. Man. Where do you start? And you've got the same note in 6 different places sometimes, right? So how do you know if you're even playing it in the right place?
Right.
So yeah, so that was actually my first one, and that experience actually really did help dial my ear in quite a bit, because everything after that was much easier. It was not 8 hours locked in a room. It was 15 minutes, and I'd be like, oh yeah, because I had explored so much of the neck in that 8 hours of trying to figure out that first piece, that I kind of I knew where things kind of were, where sounds kind of were at, and where they weren't at. So it was a little bit easier from that point on, but still difficult.
Isn't that interesting too? Because while you're in the middle of that and you're kind of digging through that soup, you don't know that you're developing that. You're just like insistently trying to get this thing that you desperately want in your hands. And it's it's like a thing that's missing, I think, today, as far as like young guitar players with YouTube and everything. And trust me, I take advantage of Transcribe and I slow stuff down to learn it. Because I mean, we have it now.
Yeah, why would you?
Yeah, why would we kill ourselves like rewinding like that? But I think that's fun, man, to know that you kind of went on that journey, and then like you, without even realizing, like, oh, why is this so much easier now? Because I've done it for 10,000 hours now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. So like, let's talk a little bit. So Sean, Edge of Breakup, told me that he's like, Lawrence is such a great guy. He's a shredder, man. He can play. So tell me a little bit about, because I think that style, like Guthrie, like the whole sweep stuff and like the precision that's involved with that. Like I got really into Humphreys McGee for a little bit, and Jake Sininger that's in that band, he's got those chops too. And now they're a jam band, but they're like a heavy jam band. So I got into that stuff and trying to figure it out. And I found that, man, that takes a hell of a lot of coordination to be able to match your, and even like the three note per string stuff. Like I still can do that a little bit, like that much, but that takes a lot of efficiency and a lot of coordination. So like, tell me how you like circumvented that and jumped over that hurdle to start working on things like that.
The alternate picking thing came pretty easy for me, for whatever reason, and I don't really know exactly why it came easy, but that compared to the other things, economy picking, sweep picking, legato, the alternate picking thing just was easier for me. So that one, while it was still a challenge and I still had to do thousands of hours of metronome work to get it clean, precise, fast, in time, everything that makes it musical, that was actually the easy part of the journey. The legato thing, because I think was next in difficulty, because I'd spent so much time working on my right hand, right? With the alternate picking thing, It's like, oh yeah, I'm kind of one of my music teachers, like, you should try doing a little bit more, hammers and pulls. You're a little bit, your technique is a little bit out of balance. You pick everything. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
oh, okay. Right. And so that was difficult, because it's like developing a set of muscles that I hadn't developed before. So there's the whole fatigue and, wow, this sucks. This is difficult. And you learn that playing legato stuff is so much easier when you play it extremely fast, because the muscle movement is small, and it's reflex action. It's not actual. It's not actual like focused, deliberate muscle movement. It's all reflex action. Whereas if you slow it down really slow, and you're doing, eighth notes at 80 or whatever, hammer and pull, that is extremely demanding for energy, and you wouldn't think so because you're going slow, but you have to control so much of when the fingers move, and getting the right motion to get the sound. It was, so that was the next one in line, and that took me a while to get a good balance between the alternate picking and the legato thing.
Yeah.
I would say Vinnie Moore was probably a huge influence for me in that respect, and I know Holdsworth and DiMeola were both huge, influences on him for that. Which is funny, because a lot of these great players like Holdsworth and DiMeola, they didn't come to me firsthand. It was secondhand, because I'd read an article on in a guitar magazine for Vinnie Moore, because I was into Vinnie Moore, and he said, "Oh yeah, I listen to these guys," and then I'd go listen to these guys. And I'm like, "Holy, when did these guys play?" And it's like in the '70s. Who knew music like that was going on in the '70s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's cool, because I always chased that lineage, and you just learn so much more doing it that way, rather than just going, face value wherever you got it. I picked up, this would have been, I think this was 1989. I got the Frank Gambale live album, which is for a live album. I don't think they get much better than that. It is insane how clean.
Yeah, I've heard it.
And it's wonderful for fusion. If you're into fusion at all, it's an amazing album. And so then, I'm like, wow, who's this guy? And again, I don't even know. I think I had seen Frank's picture in some of the guitar magazines, so I went to pick something up, and that was the first one I found, luckily enough. And I listened to it, and then, okay, so then I start going down that rabbit hole, and exploring economy picking, which is that messes with your head. You have to figure things out. It's a whole like vocabulary you kind of have to learn and build in order to effectively use it, unless you're already naturally using it, because you're not doing strict alternate picking or things like that. So that was,
and for people that don't know, Lawrence, just to interrupt for a second, are you talking about the down, up, down, down? Like if you're doing like 3 note, okay. Yeah, just okay.
Yeah. So what odd number of picks keeps the pick direction going, even number changes directions, right? So if you got 3 on a string, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, right? Yeah. And so it's like I'll just alternate pick. Right. Right. That's easier. But it has a different sound. And that's what kept me on that discovery path, was because it had the sound. It wasn't the same sound as strict alternate picking, and it wasn't the same sound as legato. It was like this halfway in between kind of balance thing that was like very cool. And you hear Frank sweeping full chords, and you're just like, oh, I want to do that. That's cool, right? Yeah. And it was that time period in playing that everyone was, if you couldn't sweep an arpeggio, you didn't get in a band. That was all there was to it. Right. Go back to the woodshed. So
totally,
you had to do that. And then the straight sweeping thing. Again, I was kind of late to Yngwie. I didn't get turned on to Yngwie until probably 88 or 89. The first Joe Lynn Turner album, was that Odyssey? And then went back from that. So I kind of was late to that party too. But I sweeping took me the longest. That
Yeah.
took me the longest, just because, like you said, there's minimal movement with the right hand because it's just flowing across the strings, and the left hand is doing a lot of intricate stuff. So there's, yeah, it's quite challenging.
That stuff, and it's funny, I always say this to my wife, like when it gets into like minutia stuff, like if it's like repetitive and like this, just like it makes me it like makes me
Right?
gag. Like I have this like reaction, like this physical reaction to it, like, oh god, this is like making my skin crawl, like doing
I
this stuff
know.
this slow. But it's, you know, it's important to do it slow so you can get the muscle memory, obviously. It's just funny, man. It's like that stuff takes a lot of patience, and like
It
I think
does.
I don't think you know, have any ADD. I think it might be slightly, but like it's like squirrel, you know, like it's like I get distracted and like start playing my blues licks or something. I don't
Right.
know what it is about that, but I find it so fascinating and just so inspiring to see people play like that, because like going back to Guthrie, like you said, just like the fluidity of like musical communication in that
Yeah.
arena of
Yeah.
playing is just mind-boggling. Like
Yeah.
I can't even fathom. Like I come from the BB King school where one note, you can make one note mean a hell of a lot. You know what I mean? But when I see that stuff, it's like when I first time I heard George Benson Burning, I was like, holy crap! Like this, I didn't know. And then you got to go back and you see Joe Pass and you see all these other people,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're like, dude, like where have I been? Like under
Yeah.
a rock, you know?
Yeah. Who knew that kind of music was being played in that era, right? That's as guitar players, I think we kind of put the blinders on a little bit and stay there, and you gotta follow the lineage to find out. It's like, oh man, there's all this great music, you know. Maybe we
Yeah.
aren't doing so many new things, right? Maybe we're just doing it with new sounds.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a great segue, because let's talk about your company and let's talk about
Okay.
these amazing things. First of all, why do I love this so much?
It's purple.
I have been screaming your praises. There's a couple of pedal companies that I really, really love. Because you all are wonderful, beautiful people and you make amazing things. But when I first played this, and I have to give a big shout out to Buddy. Buddy's in here, or he was in here. And this is what he wrote. Ask him how the heck he fits a Marshall in a pedal. So that, and he said, and where do I get a t-shirt like Lawrence is wearing?
Oh, this is one of a kind. I got to get this. I got to get more of these made and up on the site. This was a trial run, so I like
They're
it though.
cool,
So
man.
I think I'll put it up.
It looks rad. But when I first heard this, I'm not even kidding you. This does not happen often, and I'm not trying to blow smoke, but like for real, like I heard it and I turned on the overdrive channel first. I didn't do the boost because I was like, I want to hear what this thing sounds like and what your ears have tuned this thing in to be. And 5 minutes go by. I'm like, where's the Velcro? And I'm like running out of Velcro, like putting it on there. In fact, I took it off because I had crappy Velcro. I just ordered dual lock to put on this. So, and I put it on the board and it hasn't left. And I'm just like, there's a certain beautiful, I've never played through a Plexi ever. Like I played through a Blues Breaker one time when I was at Berkeley in the studios. They had one and I really liked it. But I've never played through a honest to God, like Plexi, like a super lead or anything. And there's something that happens with this circuit. You're going to have to explain it to me, but regardless if I play it with my Strat or I play it with my 335, it does this thing to the notes where, especially with the Mockingbird, the Josh Williams Mockingbird, that the PAFs in there, that they're not original PAFs, but it's tone specific Bloombuckers. There's this beautiful roundness that the notes have to this. And it's not like I just don't find myself wanting to get in bed with a tube screamer anymore. Like this kind of a circuit speaks to me more. It's like, this thing is so musical. So how the hell did you do this? Like, where, like, was a leprechaun sprinkling juice in? What's going on here, man?
There was. It's actually, that's why you can't open it and look inside. There's a bunch of little magical dudes in there. So, we were talking before about transformative I don't know what the words I'm looking for. Transformative. Yeah, there it is. Transformative experiences as you go. And one of mine was listening to my first Plexi stack. I'd listened to Marshalls before and played through Marshalls, and I've played Marshalls most of my musical career. I'm drawn to that sound. I play other things too, but that's my foundation. Anyway, so I guess this would be circa about 1987, late 87, maybe early 88. I was at a rehearsal studio with my band in the Bay Area at a place called the Music Spectrum. And in our rehearsal room, we got there a little bit earlier, and in our rehearsal room, someone had set up basically 2 full stacks, 100-watt super leads, and he was in there playing, dialing in, and it was the full thing. It was lit up and on 10 and just as loud as the voice of God, right? It was crazy. And he stops for a moment, and the owner of the Music Spectrum, Rich, who was also one of my first guitar instructors, says, "You guys got to come in and listen to this." He's like, "You're going to want to put your earplugs in because it's crazy loud, but you got to come in and listen to this." And so we go in there, and the guy's playing a Strat, really nice old 60s Strat. And they were either 67s or 68s. The Plexi heads were with the matching cabinets, crazy, right? Stuff that people would like shell out gazillions of dollars for now. Back then, it was just like, yeah, it's a Marshall Plexi. But anyway, so we're in there, and he fires it up, and it's so loud that my chest is compressing, right? And the room is probably 20 by 20. It's fairly good sized room, fully soundproofed, but still small enough that the air pressure from those speakers and that volume was insane. And he's playing, and it's just singing. It's the most beautiful sound I think I've ever heard. And so I couldn't take it anymore. So I take my earplugs out, and I'm maybe 10 seconds before I slammed my fingers back in my ears, but it was just glorious. Right. Yeah. So that experience left an indelible mark in my psyche. I mean, whenever I plug into a Marshall, into a Plexi, that's the sound that I'm trying to get. So, and not all of them will do it. Obviously, there are lots of variances in those amps. But when I was designing the 68, that was my benchmark tone that I was trying to achieve, and it took a long time and lots of tweaking. There were moments that I remember. I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's totally it. And I'd sit down and I'd play it. Yeah, that's it. It's great. Play through a couple of guitars, a couple different cabinets, a couple different amps. Yeah, I think that's got it. And put it down and come back the next day, and it's like, nah, it's not even close. Another 3 months goes by of tinkering, and and so it just took a while. But when it was done, I think it was pretty much, I would say it was 95% of everything that I wanted it to be. Granted, there are, trying to squeeze all of that into a pedal it's difficult. You don't have the voltage to play with the headroom. You're not using tubes, so that's tough to kind of overcome. You have to figure out how to make that kind of work. But obsession goes a long way. So I did that, and I tried several things that I hadn't seen in other pedals, commercial pedals, or even the boutique stuff, that made sense to me that it would probably work, and I didn't know why anyone else hadn't tried it yet, or why it wasn't being used. So part of not being a schooled engineer is that I do now because I've learned so much along the way. But at the time, there were certain boundaries that I would easily cross that most trained engineers would not approach crossing, because you're just taught don't do that. And I know now, I mean, there are some things that I did that worked that probably, shouldn't have, but they did. So it's like, okay. And it's one of those things, like I compare it to, when you first pick up the guitar, maybe 2-3 weeks in, and you're just playing sounds. You're not thinking about it at all. You're just making sounds, and you come up with some stuff that goes together, right? Like first 2 or 3 songs that you kind of create, right? And they sound good together, and it doesn't matter why, they just do. And 10 years later, after you know how everything works, you go back and look at those things and you're like, what is that? I mean, it works and it still sounds good, right? But what is that? Where did that come? You're not supposed to do that, and it works. So same kind of thing. And there are some LPD circuits that have that kind of thing in it, just because when they were, early on when they were designed, there was just this, well, let's try this. And yeah, that did what I thought it was going to do, and we'll leave it.
Dude, that's crazy. So, I mean, how far has this come from V1? Like, are you like, now I'm whatever, you said like 95% closer or whatever, or to that day when you were in front of that stack, but like, how much has this changed from the first breadboard to now that you know a lot more?
It's, I wouldn't say substantially different. The core circuit is still the same. There was just more small tweaking to get it a little bit more in line. I don't believe the one that you have is the most recent one. You have version 2 point something. Version 3 I just rolled out a couple months ago. Everything is exactly the same in the circuit, but it has a different bass control. I like to listen to feedback from my customers, and when it's a large enough volume of the same issue, I like to make the change, right?
Yeah.
So one of the recurring things, and this is specific to bedroom players, and I totally understand why this is. Live guys have never had an issue with this, and that is the bass control. So the bass control that is on your version and was on the original is it's largely there to make up for the EQ that the gain control does, because as you turn the gain control up, it shells off low frequencies to keep it nice and tight, which is yeah. But it's nice to have a control there that you can kind of add that back in, and that's what it was. It was just a passive control that allowed the frequencies that the gain control was taking out, you can put them back in. And to me, in a live setting through a Fender combo, it does exactly what I wanted it to do. But if you're playing it through something that isn't a bass heavy amp, right, doesn't have a lot of bass, or you're playing at a low volume, the bass control is a little lacking.
Right.
So I designed an active bass control that is it's boost only in this particular case, that would allow you to add more bass to the final tone. It doesn't take away, it's completely post clipping, so it doesn't change any of the character of the clipping or the feel or anything like that. It just adds bass frequencies, kind of the same way that this control wasn't available until like the 90s, but the what do they call it, the thump control, or the on the dual rectifiers, there's a control like the presence but for low end.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I had a Mesa Boogie rectifier for a while. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a similar kind of thing where it adds it at the very last of the change, so it doesn't really change the way that the clipping characteristics are. It's just it just adds bass. Yeah, so on V3, if you turn the bass control to between completely off and say 9 o'clock, which, let's see, for us non-analog clock guys, that would be about 2. There's a lot of people that you say 9 o'clock and they're like,
what?
yeah. So
I know.
yeah. So that's in that range of the original, and then from 9 o'clock on is all boost, that you can use. If you're playing late at night and you want to be at a low level, you can still get that where. And you're playing by yourself. That's the other thing too, because if you're just playing guitar by yourself, what works in a live setting in a good mix sounds really thin, when you're just sitting there practicing by yourself.
Totally.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So that was that's the only main change that's happened to it, other than small tweaks. The original was the size that the current standard is, and it had a toggle switch on it. It was that gives you the same thing that the channel foot switch does on the deluxe.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Yeah. So originally it was. I don't have one around, otherwise I'd show you. I do have. Well, this kind of. Sorry, it's dusty. So this was. You can see that.
Mm-hmm.
So this was after about 3 months after I released the original. Somebody asked me if I could do a mini, so I did a mini. But it's the same basic layout. There's a toggle switch for the 2 channels, high gain, low gain, same controls. And I guess about a year after I released it, I split the line. I went with the standard, which was a single channel, just the low gain channel, and then I went with the deluxe, which is the one that you have, which has the independent pre-gain boost with the 2 channels. Yep. And same controls. The only added control was just the boost level, so you could change the boost on it.
Yeah. And the boost on this, I mean, I wouldn't change a thing about this. I think it's amazing. But I think the thing that I really liked about the boost too is, like, how sometimes some boost pedals, it'll feel, the best way I can describe this is like, feels like there's a gigantic jump in volume, like with some boost pedals. And now, I mean, I've had a few of them that I've had on and off my board, but this one is the taper on it is so nice. Like, you can set up your amp. I usually, if I'm going on a gig, I'll set up the amp. I'll get my bass tone, which is usually like the Wind Cries Mary type vibe. That's how I want my clean tone to be. And then from there, just dial in the boost just to push that a little harder. Like, it doesn't have to be. And I love how this can get fuzzy. Like, if you crank it, it's killing. But like, I think, and I'll say it again, this is such a musical pedal. It really, it responds so well to changing the volume on your instrument. Like, if you just back it off, I found that, because I play a lot of slide too, I found that, like, using the overdrive channel on this and backing off my volume a little bit, I was getting like Derek Trucksy area. I can't play like Derek, but you can get that kind of glassy
nice
slide tone too. You know what I mean? So like, this just works, and it works fantastic with my Strat, and it works fantastic with the 335. There's no, it's not, and I don't even feel like there's a gigantic jump in volume when I'm changing between the two. And I kind of almost like how it changes the characters of it when I'm switching from single coils to humbuckers in a way, because it does what it should do to those guitars. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think this thing is just, I mean, I've been telling all my guitar friends about it, because I just think you've really, this is something. I'm so glad Buddy introduced us, because this is becoming like my go-to. Like, between this, I have this and my OCE pedals, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah.
His wrench fuzz, between and this thing loves that pedal too. When I stack these two, woo! Yeah. And I'll put, like, the last time I had a rehearsal, and when I really want to like punch it, and if it's going somewhere, if the solo's going somewhere, I just put all 3 of these on, and it doesn't get overbearing. It doesn't. It's like so musical, so tasteful. It's just like I feel like I've come into a whole new world, because it's like
nice.
It's just a different sound, and I think it's the sound that I have been looking for such a long time. So I really appreciate that about what you've done here with this thing, man. It's
Very
killing.
cool.
It's
Very
killing.
cool.
Changing my
I'm
life,
glad, I'm
buddy.
glad you like it. I'm glad you like it.
Dude, it's so great. It's so great. Anyway, we're coming up on the hour, and I want to do the lightning round get down with you
Okay.
because I could have talked to you for 3 hours, buddy. It would have been easy. All right, so let me put on.
We'll have to do it again.
Oh, we can. We can totally
be continued.
Yeah, for sure, dude. We can absolutely do that. All right, I'm gonna put on the metronome at 112 BPM for some suspense. I got 10 questions for you, Lawrence. 10 questions.
Okay.
Now, you can explain your answers if you like, or you can just blow through them, whatever you're more comfortable doing. I love explanations, but it's no pressure, no pressure system. All right, here we go. Number one, since we're going to do a little Halloween because we just had that last night. Freddie or Jason?
Freddie.
Baby Ruth or Snickers?
Snickers.
Okay. JCM 800 or Silver Jubilee?
JCM 800. Yeah. I love a Jube. I love a good Jube, but yeah, I kind of cut my teeth on 800. So
yeah. Are they as rock and roll as you hear if you plug into one?
800s?
Like, is it like instant Angus Young kind of vibe?
Yeah,
or instant
much.
hair metal.
A good one. A good one. Yeah, if you're playing through like an early one with the vertical inputs, they're very much the same as the JMPs. So yeah, it's pretty much that tone. Yeah.
Dang. Okay, cool. Soft pretzels or popcorn?
Oh, soft pretzels.
All right, cool.
All right, mustard. Gotta have mustard.
Oh yeah. Honey mustard. All right. So who played the better movie guitarist in this question? Okay. Ralph Macchio or Michael J. Fox?
Oh, Michael J. Fox.
Okay. All right. Chris Evans, help me with this one. For pedal enclosures, 125B or 159 OB?
Oh, that one's tough. Because it depends on what you want. If you want side mount jacks, if side mount jacks are okay, 1590 all the way, 1590B all the way. Because I like the proportion of height to there. But if you want top mount jacks, you have to go with the 125.
Because it's higher?
Yeah, it's more room. It's just slightly wider. And just a little bit taller, so you can actually more easily get things in there. Now, that said, I just converted the 87 to top mount jacks in a 1590B.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's doable. It just took me a while to be able to. Fortunately, some new products have come on the market, some narrower jacks to be able to get it to fit in there well. That one I should be able to roll those out here probably early next year.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Lost Boys or Monster Squad?
Lost Boys.
Yeah. All right.
Great movie.
Oh, heck yeah. George Costanza or Kramer?
Kramer.
Metallica or Megadeth?
Oh, difficult.
Yep.
Boy, that's tough. Man, I don't know where to go with that one. It depends on the. Are we talking original, or
we're talking post Dave Mustaine? He splits off, and there's a big old battle.
Sure. Yep. So, all right. So then, are we with both Megadeth and Metallica? Are we talking pre-Black Album and say Euthanasia?
Yes. We can stay with like Cliff Burton, but post Dave Mustaine.
That's fine, because that's in my opinion, that's Metallica's best stuff. But it's hard to beat Metallica. But there is Rust in Peace and Countdown to Extinction and Euthanasia, which were just amazing albums. So damn. That is rough. That's a rough one. I remember listening to early Megadeth and not being very excited about it, because the early albums are very different, right? Peace Sells, So Far So Good So What. Those albums are they're good. They're just different. I'm gonna
What
go
was the
Metallica.
Megadeth song
Let's go with
in
Metallica on that one.
Metallica? Okay. What was the Megadeth song that was in? Remember that movie, The Last Action Hero? What was that really popular Megadeth tune?
Was that what? No, it wasn't Skin of My Teeth. It was. They only did it for that movie, I think, right?
I think because remember that Alice in Chains tune that was on there? What the hell have
Yeah,
I? That was such a great song.
yeah.
Oh,
What was that? What was that song? I've
was
got
it?
it. It's on Hidden Treasures or something like that. I can't remember the name of the Megadeth album that they released that just had all of those songs that never made. They were like soundtracks, never made the album, but I can't remember what the name of it was.
Okay, cool. All right, so Metallica it was.
Yeah, I have to.
All right, here's the last one. All right,
All right.
so if you could take one record and erase it from your memory, like you've never heard it before, just so you could go back and listen to it for the first time again and experience it for the first time again, what record would that be?
Pink Floyd's The Wall.
Man, I'm telling you, Pink Floyd is running the game in this question. They get the top tier all the time. All right, tell me why.
I was in, let's see, when did that? I think I was a freshman in high school when that album came out. So really impressionable time. I was probably 2 or 3 years into my music journey. So I was still really soaking things up and very, very into music. Like, there wasn't too many hours a day that I wasn't listening to music. Only when I couldn't,
Right.
basically. And that album just, boy, I don't know, it just struck a chord with me. And I had it on vinyl, and I wore out 2 of them from listening to it so much. So yeah, which is nuts. I tend to be a little obsessive, but it was like, yeah, it was on, right? From the first groove to the last, flip it over, first groove to the last, put that one back in the sleeve, get the second half, first groove to the last. Yeah.
Yeah. That record is so good. I haven't listened to that in a long time, man. I should go back and it's like an immersive record though. It's like you almost have to sit and listen
You
to the
do
whole
the whole
thing,
thing.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not something you can just pop on a single and be like, "Yay."
Yeah.
You gotta
Right. No,
dive in.
it definitely is that way. That's funny. Tool's Lateralis is that way for me too. If I'm going to listen to it, and I have to listen to it in headphones, I can't be in the car or any place because it's got such a large dynamic range that you miss
Yeah.
half of the album if you don't. But yeah, definitely, yeah, that Pink Floyd. Close second would be AC/DC's Back in Black.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny that album, regardless of what people say. Like, that's just like the popular. But that record is from start. There's so many hits on that record.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's like a hit mega. Like every tune almost on that record.
Yep. Fantastic guitar tones, the arrangements, the recording. It's just top notch.
Yeah, the drums sound so good on that album. So good on that album.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe figured it out. It's Angry Again.
Angry Again.
Angry. And wasn't that video was like all Dave? It was like several of him. It was like multiplicity kind of situation.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I think. Oh man. All right. So BV wanted to say hello to you. He said, make sure you say hello.
Hey, Bev.
So what we could do, let me see, drop in all the information. Anybody that wants to check out LPD, please do so. It's becoming one of my favorite brands as a guitarist and really like amazing stuff. And we had somebody else in here. 68 is the absolute best plexi in a pedal around. Agreed. 100%. And I've never even played a plexi, but if that's what it sounds like, sign me up. Anything you want to drop as far as like stuff that's coming or to keep an eye out?
Yeah, I have this Thursday morning, I have a limited release that I'm going to put out. Haven't disclosed the full picture of it yet, or the name, but that'll be probably, I don't know whether I'll do the full thing tomorrow or just wait till Thursday when I do the release. But that's Buddy's got a video he'll be releasing of it.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
and he says he really enjoys it, so that's good. I'm happy about that.
Good.
I think I'm done pretty much with. I might have a I think I'm going to do this. A limited release of it's. So I just released the 74 Deluxe, which has a brand new lower gain channel. The green channel on it is brand new. So what I think I'm going to do for Black Friday is do like a different color scheme. Thinking bright yellow for the 74, and then build just the green channel into that, and do like because like that's like bright yellow and black, and maybe gray with the chrome knobs. I think that would be cool.
Oh yeah.
Maybe like Transformers theme something. I don't know.
Oh,
But
I
that'd
get
be
down
cool,
with some Bumblebee, my friend.
right? And maybe I'll just do 23 of them, and we'll keep it prime, right? It's a prime number. There we go.
Nice. There you go. Dude, that's awesome. Well, everybody, make sure you go check him out. Lawrence has a great presence on Instagram as well. Did I pop that up there? I think we popped that up there. If not, here it is. Check that out.
It is.
BB, thanks again for moderating and always dropping this stuff in here. You're amazing. Dude, Lawrence, man, it's such a pleasure to hang with you. We'll definitely have to do this again because I feel like we didn't cover enough ground. So we'll have to do it, maybe in the new year, sometime later in the new year.
Sorry, I tend to get a little long-winded.
Me too, man. I mean, it's fun to talk about this stuff. I think there's there's an audience out here that we want to hear what your path has been and what makes you excited and why you do what you do. And that's what's great about this is like, I wouldn't want to be talking to you if you weren't pumped about what you're doing and excited about possibilities of what you can do in the future. And like, and making something this amazing and like really touching somebody, like, cause you kind of pulled up the roots of something that I didn't know was inside of me, So was that weird? I don't think it was weird, but anyway, but you pulled something out of me now, and it's making me play different. It really is. Sure. It's making me like approach playing differently and more articulate and everything. So dude, thank you for doing what you're doing. Great asset to this community for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So everybody, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We'll see you next time.